Good evening. I'm Kelly Wright. Thanks for joining me as we spend the next hour together. I am hoping that you're safe and well, taking care of yourself and your family because you matter. My opening observations tonight, the coronavirus is still going upwards instead of downward. We've got a problem in America. We've got a problem globally. Some 40 million cases around the world. And here in America, the death toll keeps rising. And the number of cases continue to surge in various states throughout the country. And a lot of it is due to the fact that we are not really getting ahead of this coronavirus because of how we've politicized it. Simply wearing a mask should not become a political statement. Hearing from a doctor or a scientist who knows about the virology and the epidemiology of viruses should not be disputed with because of the fact that you're running for president of the United States and you're saying we're rounding a curve when the scientists are clearly saying we haven't really flattened the curve. We've got a problem, Mr. President. We've got a problem, Mr. Biden. And a lot of people are going to be voting for either one of you to address this virus head on and not play games with it, because it certainly isn't a game. It's a matter of life and death. The coronavirus affects everybody. Let's be front and clear with this. Let's be perfectly clear with this. The coronavirus does not care if you're white, does not care if you're the president. It does not care if you're black, if you're brown, if you're yellow, if you're red. The coronavirus only cares about the fact that you are living and you're a host that it can prey on if we are not careful, and it will. It's just that simple. So let's stop the nonsense about disputing the science. Let's stop the nonsense of threatening doctors and governors and mayors who care enough to try to help people to mask up and COVID down. Stop the madness. Get real, people. Coronavirus can only go away if we work on this together. And that means becoming our brothers and sisters' keeper and not allowing madness to prevail to cause us to be our brother and sister's killer. And those are my opening observations. So there's some 40 million cases globally with COVID-19, according to Johns Hopkins University. Joining me now is a doctor from Johns Hopkins University, Dr. Panagis Galiatos. He joins me now. He likes to refer to himself as Dr. G. Dr. G, thank you for being in the house today for a house call on the Kelly Wright Show. You know, this is not going away. Contrary to what is being said on the campaign trail by the President of the United States, that we're rounding the curve, as he says, it seems like the only curve that we're seeing is that it's going up in the number of cases. How concerned are you about this?
Yeah, no, and thank you so much. It's an honor to be on this show. I'm a lung and critical care doctor, and for the last, it seems like almost all of 2020, but definitely for the last several months, I've been, because of my critical care background, I've been in COVID-19 intensive care units. And all my years of training, I won't forget the spring and early summer when we were flooded with cases. I mean, we were trying to create in the hospital in real time, new intensive care units just to care and manage for these patients. And this story is not just unique to Hopkins or to myself, but many other of my colleagues, doctors and nurses alike, saw that. And to the summer, with an important messaging that went on with physical distancing emphasis, with face mask emphasis, we saw these numbers come down. And now, if we relax, Mother Nature is ready to jump on that kind of relaxation. And that's what we're seeing. So your question, am I concerned? Highly. From what I saw back in the spring and early summer, for a lot of my colleagues, a lot of them became burnt out, stressed, depressed. Because keep in mind, we want to help these patients, but we don't have a cure. So it's a lot of supportive therapy. And then the other part of our minds is, did I do enough to not bring this virus home to my family? So for my healthcare professional colleagues, this is incredibly concerning, very concerning.
And I should be honest that I'm concerned about you serving on the front line as well as your colleagues, doctors, nurses, and even those who are behind the scenes in terms of essential workers cleaning up the hospital and doing custodial services. We tend to forget about them. To that end, you're in Baltimore. Baltimore has a large African-American population. And we know that disproportionately, the health disparities that do exist have disproportionately affected the Black community. What are your concerns about that? I mean, I know you grew up in Baltimore. You obviously have a lot of passion and concern about the people living there.
Yeah, so from my standpoint, pre-pandemic, we saw disproportionate impacts in the minority communities constantly. There's a pathological syndrome called sepsis. It's been around since the ancient Greek times. All sepsis is, it's an infection that results in a cacophony of the immune system that wreaks havoc, organ dysfunction to organ failure to death. When we heard about the virus, right, exploding in cases in China, South Korea, Iran, and Italy, in my mind, I was like, this is going to ravage our minority communities, specifically the African-American communities in Baltimore City. Why? Well, if you look at the background of sepsis, who suffers the most cases and who has the worst outcomes, so both incidence of sepsis and mortality, African-Americans, right? And so from my standpoint, all the virus did was amplify something we've known for the last 3 decades of studying sepsis, that it disproportionately impacts minority populations. And so all you need is an infection. And there it is. There's the virus coming, and it's going to ravage our African-American brothers and sisters. And so from my standpoint, that fuels me every day to continue reinforcing not just my clinical care, but my research side has been community engagement to mitigate healthcare disparities. And so from my standpoint, what I'm pulling in is community engagement at a maximum. As many leaders that I can, from faith-based organizations to school, councilmen and women. Like, we need to get community messaging out into the community, by the community, for the community. Because the only way to beat COVID-19, the only way is to just not get it itself. And so from that standpoint, getting community messaging around masking, getting community messaging around physical distancing, working with the councilmen and women here in Baltimore City to allocate more economic resources for the African-American community, because a lot of them, you brought up a good point about the custodial workers and other employees of the hospital. Hopkins hires tons and tons and tons of people in Baltimore City, right? So we shouldn't make them feel sacrificial. We need to make sure that they're getting the care and treatment that they have. And if they can stay at home and still not have an economic punishment from that, that should be their decision, right? They should have that freedom to make that choice. So the healthcare disparity, to me, it's been concerning. It's always been concerning, even before the pandemic. Sepsis and healthcare disparities on that. It's been one of my research interests. Mm-hmm. What I plead is to stop this disproportionate, unethical reckoning. It's not going to be a hospital alone. It's got to be, as I'm painting out, a multidisciplinary approach to help every population come out of this alive.
I'd like you to stay with me, because on the other side of the break, I want to talk more about the fact that Johns Hopkins University has been putting it out there from a public health perspective of just how dire this situation is, and the number of deaths that you're actually watching globally as well as nationally. We'll be back with more of Dr. G after this. Welcome back to the program. So I'm talking to Dr. Panagis Galiatos of the Johns Hopkins University Public Health Group. He is a lung specialist, and you do a lot of care on the front lines with COVID cases. Johns Hopkins is very instrumental in its research and also in following and helping to establish the national guidelines of how we treat this. As you know, the CDC has been mired in politics. We know that the NIH and Dr. Anthony Fauci has been mired in politics. How do we get on a firm foundation and on the good foot, so to speak, in order to actually send across a national plan that will help save lives and flatten this curve of coronavirus, which is not going downward, but going upward?
No, I mean, you ask an amazing question. And from my standpoint, the fact that this science has become politicized, um, I think every doctor and nurse, every healthcare employee, we get frustrated because we're the ones who see the worst consequences of it, right? Every employee at the hospital, and I love what you brought up earlier, from custodial worker to physician, we've seen, the countless amounts of admissions, hospitalizations, and deaths that have been occurring because of this virus. Mother Nature can sit back. She will give us, the disease. She doesn't care about politicization. For us, that's such a disadvantage, right? If you're getting mixed messaging from leadership, you're going to put many people's lives at risk. I mean, so from my standpoint, I'm a physician, first and foremost, in regards to my profession. The only thing that I would plea is put in leaders, regardless if you vote them in or you kind of democratically elect them, out of your neighborhoods and so forth. Put in people in place that recognize that lives shouldn't come at the expense of, this kind of politicization that we're seeing. We have to listen to the science. We have to understand how to beat this enemy. And this is where I come from, right? This virus needs us to live, right? We're like water to a plant. Viruses can't exist by themselves. They need to go into our own cells and make more of them. And so I say this because, out of Hopkins, one of the public health messaging that we've created, myself and a few others, is we created a COVID-19 curriculum for school-age children, K through 12. And we go in there to teach the science. That's it. Hey, here's the biology of the virus, and here's how you can stop it from spreading. And I've had fifth graders who asked me, when will this end? And I said, hey, if 95% of individuals, face masks, physical distancing, we could end this year. And all of them are just dumbfounded because they say, well, why don't adults understand this? And everyone wants us to come back to somewhat of a normal life. A vaccine will take time. A cure is not so much on the horizon. But I really plead, the more we can understand that stopping this pandemic really is in our hands, right? If we have the potential to spread the virus, then the flip of that is, but we also have the potential to not spread it. And so what I plea is, vote for science. I know we always talk about the economy and so forth. We won't have an economy if people are passing away or sick for months on end. We talked about mortality, but I also run a post-COVID-19 clinic. COVID-19's ramifications continue long after you get discharged from the hospital. So, from my standpoint, for right now, if we could just put science first, because it will come at the ability to save lives.
And to your point earlier in our first segment, you were talking about you want to be able to go home to your family to know that you have not exposed your family to the coronavirus. As you know, we're coming up close, fast, quick, and in a hurry to the holiday season. Many families will want to get together. From your public health perspective, what are you advising families to do this particular holiday season, Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's?
Yeah, no, and again, a great question, because I'm being faced with it as well with my own family. And so I'm going to make a few points of emphasis. Wherever the gathering happens, right, the best way to not spread the virus in that gathering is to not bring the virus into the gathering. So if you want to prepare for Thanksgiving and Christmas, it means doing the right things right now to not catch the virus and make those actions into your permanent habit during the pandemic. So wearing face masks, physical distancing, staying at home as often as you can will protect you from catching this virus. And as times come up for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and other holidays, you can talk to your family. So this is the second point, talk to your family and get an understanding of what everyone's been doing. This is not to pass judgment or stigma, but if you have a loved one who, has been dismissive, they're going out, no face masking and not emphasizing physical distancing, just say, we love you. We hope you have a great Thanksgiving, Zoom in, but, we're going to be very selective of who we bring into this environment, and that's what we're doing on our end. We're talking to all our loved ones and saying, if you guys are following this protocol, let's touch base again 2 weeks prior to Thanksgiving, and whoever's safe to come in will come in. That's how we'll grow our social bubble. The third element that I will emphasize is 2 variables about a public health space gathering that someone can control is how many people, because each person raises your probability of bringing in the virus, and how long of a time you spend together. And so for our standpoint, what we're trying to do is probably keep a cap somewhere around 10 to 15, keep them there for about less than 2 hours, and then, reconsider bringing in a new group of family members later that afternoon. I know this is an atypical presentation of a Thanksgiving, but I'm giving you my own personal input of how we're approaching this. So talk to your family members now, make sure that they're abiding by, the COVID-19 public health requests. Those who you feel comfortable and can trust, I would invite them into your social circle for Thanksgiving, but try to put a cap of how many people you would invite in. Because again, each case, each person raises your chances of bringing in the virus. And then talk about the timing. I know from my standpoint, this is going to be hard because, family will come. We would have 40 people there for 8 hours. We're going to cap the number. We're going to keep it minimal and try to keep everyone there for about 2 hours. And it's going to be a different Thanksgiving, but I want to spread joy and not the virus. And that's what we'll emphasize during this time. I still think we can be socially connected, but in a public health conscious manner.
Dr. G, I appreciate you coming on and sharing a lot of your insights and your experience, your expertise in all of this. And I appreciate what Johns Hopkins University is doing to alert the nation and the world in terms of how we deal with this. And the curriculum you have, we want to keep people updated on that curriculum you have for young people. Appreciate you doing that, not only here in the United States, but also in Africa. We'll be back with more after this, but we'll have Dr. G on again and again from Johns Hopkins University. Thank you, sir. God bless.
Thank you so much. Take care.
So welcome back to the program. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen it disrupt our economy, and it's impacted all Americans, but in particular, Black Americans, entrepreneurs and business owners. So what can be done? What is being done to improve the economy for Black business owners and entrepreneurs? Joining me now is Ryan Mack. He has a life mission to build and develop a durable financial empire geared towards educating our community and beyond. And of course, Ryan, you bring a lot of credentials with you, being a graduate from the University of Michigan, business school, ranked #1 in the country. Tell us what you see on the horizon for improving Black business, even in the midst of this downturn in the economy because of COVID.
Well, I think that Black businesses overall have been, there was a research done, a study by the University of California, Santa Cruz, that said that as many as 41% of businesses, almost 440,000 enterprises have been shuttered because of COVID. And that's compared to 17% of white-owned businesses. And it's always been known, and even in the work that we've done in the past in terms of trying to help businesses, to do basic things such as learn basic accounting metrics and mechanisms. The majority of Black-owned businesses are single entity owned businesses, where it was one individual owning that, running that business. How do we help them to grow? How do we help them to flourish? How do we help them to expand their doors and even go through these times hard times are going to come. Hard times are going to come, but how do we help them go through these times? And then we've seen there's various plans, like we've done a lot of work recently, over the years rather, with CDFIs in the Lift Every Voice plan. There's a expanding of new, as the Joe Biden's plan that's specifically targeted towards Black America, basically that doubles the community development financial institutions funding. For those who don't know, CDFIs have a mandate to be certified to actually have investment within within impoverished areas with 60%, as much as 6% ranked in poverty. So they have a mandate to go invest in low-income areas and to loan, whether it be giving out mortgages, businesses, and do overall services and expanding those particular those areas in which they exist. So expanding that and doubling that would be something that would be very beneficial. There was, when Obama was in office, he had a thing called the Promise Zones, where they would create investment dollars in low-income areas that helped in cities like New Orleans. I know Wendell Pierce was very instrumental in helping getting a lot of that funding from those Promise Zones. It seemed as if those types of programs under the Trump administration has been retreated to where we'll see things such like tax incremental financing. And what happens is that you'll get big wig fat Wall Street cats who will want to park their dollars in and get tax credits from investing in low income areas. And it's almost as if you talk about, especially in urban communities, you talk about class, you'll get race for free. So Black comes along with that. Well, they'll be able to park their dollars in these areas, but don't necessarily, and they'll make money off of it. But and if the city doesn't generate enough revenue, the first people that get paid back is Wall Street, but then the schools, the roads, and the infrastructure does not necessarily come behind and does not benefit. So
referring to the Opportunity Zone program.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that happened in Detroit, that happened in St. Louis, it happens in urban communities across the country where it's, and I don't want to be devilish and say that there's ill intent by city leaders, because I do think that many leaders have a good intent that they want to bring those investment dollars, but it's structured in such a way where those who are poor always get left behind, but Wall Street gets paid out first. And now with COVID, we're seeing in urban cities across the country where those investment dollars, you know, Wall Street's getting paid back their money, but the schools are not being developed.
And we'll be back after this. Yeah, Ryan, what about writing our own plan? I mean, you work in this space and you've helped a lot of people from New York to LA and Newark, New Jersey, where there are a lot of proud Black business owners who are still dedicated and loyal to making their businesses thrive, even in the midst of COVID. We saw what Cory Booker did as mayor and bringing in new people and expanding the base there in Newark, and they're still striving on now under the mayor Ras Baraka, even though it's tough in COVID-19. So, and then we see Ice Cube getting a lot of controversy and flack for looking at the president's plan, the Platinum Plan, and then Joe Biden's plan. But look, we got to deal with people at large in government. But what do we do to fend for ourselves, build for ourselves, for us and by us?
Well, I mean, started with organizations like the SBA. We've done, when I was working with Operation Hope, we did a lot of work with the Small Business Association to make sure and to help them with their initiatives that they have with funding. There's so many free resources that are available to help individuals to get certified as a minority contractor and get access to various funding dollars from city contracts. Housing preservation and development.
Not to cut you off, but where do we go? Because I know we're both running short on time, but where do we go from here? How do we contact you, and how do we find out these certification plans? Because it's really not that difficult once you start the process, is my understanding.
Well, it's not. I mean, we have tons of resources that we refer individuals to. So, I mean, please email me at ryancmack@gmail.com. I'd love to refer folks. A lot of these institutions have the programs and the resources to help navigate individuals to getting funding, even if you are not eligible to get funding yourself.
All right, Ryan Mack weighing in on the issue of building financial capital within the Black community. Appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
So much for your time.
All right, he'll be back on again. We'll be back with more after this. Welcome back to the program. One of the most important topics that needs to be focused on in this world is human trafficking. It's wrong, should never be tolerated in any form or fashion. Giovanna Hernandez is an activist, an anti-trafficking activist combating modern day slavery since 2008. She's dedicated to mentoring and empowering the youth, as well as raising awareness of the barriers faced by migrants in the United States associated with human trafficking. Giovanna, it's good of you to be on the program today. I also understand that you work through a program called Project to End Human Trafficking, which is a nonprofit organization based in Pittsburgh, yet you operate on a national level. Tell us about it, please.
I have been a part of the organization since 2008. I got involved because during a time when Obama was president, they had this big push about serving your community. And I wasn't sure what area I wanted to serve. So I just started doing research about what's happening with issues of migrants coming from, abroad to America. And one of the things that piqued my interest was the subject on modern day slavery. At that time, I was like, I'm not too familiar with the term, but I dug deeper into it by watching videos about different ways that people are trafficked. Of course, the main one that we tend to talk about a lot is sex trafficking. But what piqued my attention the most was domestic servitude and labor trafficking. And the reason that piqued my interest the most is because of my journey coming to America. When my mom sent me to America when I was 10 years old, for a better education, better life, to actually live with my father and my stepmother at that time. And her desperate situation to see me have a chance at having all the things that she didn't have to have, I could sense at a young age that it was a huge risk, but she was willing to take that because of what she had. So when I look back at, wow, I saw mom struggling to get a job every day in Panama, and really, she never really got to work, not even mopping anyone's floor. I kind of understood that by sending me to America, um, it was a huge sacrifice. There was some resentment at the time, so that caused me to kind of become a little bit isolated from her. So in that sense, I didn't have that dialect and conversation with her as far as like the type of life I was living and things of that nature. Although my situation wasn't a situation of trafficking, I can resonate with it more because um, it was clear to me that when I was here, my father was not going to be living with me. He was actually in and out of the prison system. And so that put me in a situation where I was very vulnerable. So in looking back at all of the videos and hearing of the different promises that some of these victims that end up being in labor and domestic servitude situation, I see where the parallels can happen right in those moments.
So, Giovanna, first of all, your story is remarkable that you were able to make it against all odds, coming here, being sent here from Panama by your mother at a young age, and then your father being incarcerated for his lifestyle. How did you make it through all of that to get to the level that you are today, to be able to be a place of a person of hope and information to so many people here in America who are migrant workers? And look, many of them are here undocumented, and they're not really favored, or they're frowned upon actually by the Trump administration. And now in the midst of COVID-19, my goodness, where are they getting help to actually try to live some sort of normal life?
I wanted more for myself. I wanted more than the example that was before me with my parents at the time living in America. And so I just held on to that hope that I know that God will definitely, um, if I stay close to my faith and my belief, I know that He would put me in the right path and bring the right people, and along the way give me the wisdom to know when to turn away. And so my belief and my faith is what helped me just keep my eyes on the prize. So once I was 18 years old, I basically I left and I decided not to look back.
Giovanna, what an incredible story, one, and you've chosen to stay here in America. Congratulations on your American citizenship, and congratulations on being a proud American who's actually reaching out to help people around the world in countries and encouraging them to stay in their countries to help improve their countries. There's a lot to be said for that. And in today's political climate, we hear people pointing fingers at immigrants who come to this country, and yet this nation is built upon immigrants like yourself, who realize the value of what God has gifted you with, and then using those God-given gifts to help other people in areas that are war-torn, where there's gangs and there's violence. And I just, one, applaud you and applaud the organization that helped you get through this, but your faith has definitely paved a way. And I think you're an inspiration to people who are going through these very difficult times right now. And I thank you for being able to be there on the front lines to save lives. What would be your message to Americans who have, particularly Americans who have become so insensitive to the plight of migrants who risk their lives coming here in order to taste freedom and thereby be able to do exactly what you've done, help those who are back home?
Wow. So I would say we are all human beings. We all want the same thing that you all want: freedom, a peace of mind, a way to take care of our family. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm not saying everyone is the same, but majority of us, we just want to be able to just live the life that God just created us for, and that is for no one else to pick and choose for us. We just need the support, and in my situation, the risk that my mother took, I think that for many, they wouldn't understand. Mm-hmm. And for me, I had at 10 years old, I had a willing heart, because I knew that what I was seeing in my home country, I knew what my life was going to become as an adult. And so if I wasn't afforded the opportunity to make it to America, honestly, I don't know if I would have been able to do as much as I have been able to do for my brothers and sisters. I would just say, just stop and take a look at each individual, and know that there are differences, but at the same time, what unites us is the fact that we all want to lead better lives for ourselves and our family, and not everybody is going to have those same aspirations or that same drive or passion. But there were many Americans here that tilted my neck in the right direction when I was going astray. So be a part of the solution by jumping in a loving way. If you see that a young woman or a young man doesn't subscribe to your philosophy, how are you going to be creative to point them in the right direction, even if it's not your direction, but at least their direction, something that's based out of love and truth.
Giovanna, thank you. Giovanna Hernandez Williams, an anti-human trafficking activist, but you've also, I have to say, you're an activist on faith, hope, and love. And that's certainly what people need around the world. Afro-Latina actually making it quite plain what really, really is the most fundamental thing about life, and that's having life and living it to the full. You've been helping people do that. And I appreciate you being on this program and being such a warrior out there on the front lines of human trafficking. Appreciate you so much. God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you so much.
Coming up, we'll talk to Dr. Willie Jolly, to get some motivation and inspiration for your Monday and the rest of the week. That's next. Welcome back to the program. So with all that's going on in the world today, with the coronavirus pandemic, the disruption to our economy, the downturn in our mood and how we're adjusting to all of this, it can really start to weigh on you and get you down. Your nerves are frayed. Well, I want to lift you up. And to do that, we've got some inspiration from one of the best. He's one of the top 5 speakers in the world, Dr. Willie Jolly. Doc, good to see you today.
My dear friend, Kelly Wright, the great Kelly Wright, it's a privilege and a pleasure, a treat and a treasure, a joy beyond measure to be on with you and for your viewers all over America. Hey, greetings. And you're right, man. It's time for some uplift in the midst of these very difficult and challenging times where we have a pandemic, economic downturn, massive job loss, racial strife, social upheaval, environmental craziness with hurricanes, one after another, so many they almost ran out of names, and fires, not just on the West Coast, Colorado now, is, the ecology is just off balance. And then a very disruptive time in terms of politics across America. People are being hit quicker than they can kind of stabilize themselves. They get up from being knocked down on the cabins one day and then they get hit again the next day. So it's always something. You can't keep up with the news cycle, as you well know. Mm-hmm. So I think people need some uplift, some encouragement, and some hope.
That's great. Hope in the future gives us hope in the present, and it empowers us.
Yes.
And so when you're out talking to people just on an everyday level, what are they saying to you? Because there are concerns out there, and how do you turn it around? For example, people watching us today, they might want to say, I want to speak like Willie Jolly does, and I want to inject and infuse some hope into people, and even in myself.
Yeah. And I think that's a powerful thing to be able to do, and to be able to think and to be able to say that I want to help others through this tough time through my communication. And so what I have been telling people, how powerfully important it is to be able to speak good first into yourself, but into your environment and your circumstances. My team and I, Kelly, do something every morning. So, of course, we're now separated because of the pandemic. We used to have everybody here in the office and we do it live, but now we do it via digital. We do a chant. We do an affirmation every morning. And here's what it is. I am healthy. I am wealthy. I am happy. I am whole. I feel terrific. I am blessed and highly favored. This is the day the Lord has made. So we're going to rejoice and be glad in it. And I pray that today we will create prosperity in our business. We will create activity and achievement in our business. And in the process, we will help others to do the same. We will get through this. So you don't jump off a bridge. Don't give up. Be wise. Be smart. And here's what I want you to understand. You've got a choice. How you get through this. Do you get through this better or just a witness? I'm trying to get better. Some people get out, there'll be a witness. They'll say, oh, wasn't that something?
I'm with you all the way on that. I'm always telling people on this show, we have to get better, not bitter.
That's right. That's right. So This is a time when you can work on some skill sets. I'm working on it. This is a great time to learn some new languages. I'm working. Como está bien? Fantástico. I'm trying to get it together. I learned to cook. Kelly Wright. I learned to cook after I've been married almost 36 years. Kelly, I never cooked. Okay, I learned to cook doing this. I'm searing salmon.
Your wife is very brave.
To tell the truth. Well, here's what really happened. Now, I can give you the insight. My wife became a vegan, and I'm still eating not vegan. All right. I said, I'm gonna have to feed myself. But during this pandemic, I learned to cook.
So necessity is the mother of invention.
Oh, yes, it is.
He is Dr. Willie Jolly. If you need your spirit lifted up, make sure you contact Willie Jolly every day.
Every day.
Every day. You can catch him on all these different channels, Sirius XM. He's all over the place, all over the planet. One of the top 5 speakers in the world. And Willie, we got to show that video at the end of the show. We will get through this. So
good.
I like having music on here, and you're a singer as well. Started off as a singer, and now.
That's right.
I love you, man. Thank you.
Love you, man. Best to your family. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Keep doing the great work you're doing. Your messaging is a lifeline to a lot of folks. Just know that. Okay?
Thank you for that. Thank you.
My pleasure, man.
Love you, brother.
Love you, man. God bless.
And welcome back. I'd like to thank all of the guests who appeared on tonight's program. As always, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out to watch. You certainly matter to me, and I appreciate you. In closing, my final word is this. Let's really be mindful of the fact that we must exercise faith over fear during these difficult times, hope over despair, and science over the fiction. Hopefully we've been righted, ignited, and united to keep spreading love, freedom, and peace. Good night.
Pull the shades down on the sun. Don't wanna see the morning break to another day. All the words I hear you say. Close the door and keep it shut. You say the pain is just too much for you to take. How do you begin to make your way back to some kind of peace of mind? Let me share with you what's been proven through time. We'll get through this. We'll break new ground, yes. When we're lost within our weakness, hope is waiting to be found. We'll get through this, no matter what it takes. I believe we will, for heaven's sake. We'll get through this. When doubt starts staring at the faith deep inside of you, don't be afraid. Just remember what God said, that nothing formed against